Seeing that we have a quorum, we'll call the City of Menasha Board of Public Works meeting to order. Clerk, please take the roll.
Alderman Grady. Here. Alderman Benner. Alderman Nichols.
Here.
Alderman Taylor.
Here.
Alderman Sevenik.
Here.
Alderman Collier.
Here.
Alderman Kruger.
Here.
Alderman Zielinski.
Thank you, Clerk. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of November 20th, 2017. Alderman Zielinski.
Thank you. I motion to approve the minutes of November 20th, 2017.
Motion made by Alderman Zielinski, seconded by Alderman Kruger. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Discussion and action items. Section D, Item 1, change order, Keller Incorporated. Alderman Zielinski.
Motion for the change order for Keller Incorporated Project 65056 Police Department Evidence Room Addition, add $8,317, change order number 3.
Motion made. Is there a second? Second by Alderman Kruger. Chief, just I talked to you this afternoon about this. Just that brief little summary.
Sure. In the original building specs that we had put out for bid, there was a sink and the plumbing that's needed for it in the original bid. When we were having difficulty making the project as economical as possible, that portion was taken out. Because the bids did come in under what the budget amount was, this amount was then added on afterward. And I guess the only other clarification I want to make is, in case someone was questioning where was change order 1 and 2, I don't remember seeing those. We're using, if you looked at the paperwork on Keller's, they say change order number 3. However, on our paperwork, we're calling this change order number 1. The way that Keller has this in their computer system is the other building project that we're doing is in their computer system is change orders 1 and 2 of the stuff that we've been doing in the other portions of the building. So this is truly technically only change order number 1 for your purposes. And with this change, it still remains under the budgeted amount.
Okay. All in favor? Any further discussion?
Take a roll call.
That's a second. We'll take a roll call on this, and we will make that change to change order number 1. Okay. Roll call.
Motion carried on roll call 8-0.
Thank you, Clerk. Item 2, payment Keller Incorporated. Alderman Zielinski. Oh, Alderman Grady. No? Okay. Why is Grady on here? Patrick, this is locked up.
Okay, so you want to add Alderman Zielinski?
Yeah. Can't.
Okay. I will go change. Should take the battery out of Alex's.
Got to get some of that Jeopardy music.
Incorporated, project 65056, Police Department Evidence Room Addition, $68,317, payment number 2.
Motion made by Alderman Zelensky, second by Alderman Kruger. Okay. Any further discussion? We'll take a roll call.
Motion carried on roll call 8-0.
Item 3, entertain a motion for traffic calming policy. I don't have anything on here, so I'll, Alderman Kruger. Gonna have to, there you go.
Thank you. I'd like to make the motion to advance to the council the traffic calming policy.
Motion made, is there a second? Second by Alderman Zelensky. Discussion.
This is a traffic calming policy that I worked with Alderman Kruger and Alderman Severnick on. This was kind of came about because the residents at Clovis and Grove were, noticing that there were some people driving at higher rates of speed through there. There was an incident where a motorcyclist almost hit a young girl at that intersection, at a very high speed. So we decided to take a look at, ways we could improve, the safety of that location and other locations throughout the city. It was first brought to our attention that stop signs might be a solution. However, the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, which is pretty much like the traffic engineer's Bible, pretty much says that yield and stop signs are not to be used as speed control. And there are numerous studies out there that state that stop signs are effective for about 150 feet. So, and they actually can increase the speeds mid-block. Plus, if you throw stop signs at unwarranted intersections, they kind of become yield signs and people just roll right through them. This is backed up by, also a lot of evidence. So for this traffic calming policy, what we are planning on doing is trying out some radar controlled speed signs. So these are the flashing signs that tell you how fast you're going, and they do have a lot of evidence that says that it does slow people down between 2 and 5 miles an hour depending on the location. This is the cheapest and least construction, method of doing, some of this. Other options are, traffic speed bumps, speed humps, the little median islands. We didn't want to go there yet for this case or, for a policy, sort of thing. But these were a, good solution. So the department will buy one sign. It's already been budgeted for 2018, and we will put it out for 90-day periods wherever it's requested for up to 90 days. During that 90-day trial period, we will send out a memo to all of the residents on that block to see if they want that radar speed sign put there permanently. If we get responses from 75% of the residents saying yes, we will assess them for the cost of the sign, and it will remain as a permanent sign. If they decide not to want it, we'll move it to a different part of the city.
Thank you. Alderman Severnick. Yeah.
Thank you, James. Thank you, Alderman Taylor.
Kruger's got the way to hit you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'll just go really quick. I just
Go
want
ahead,
to.
Steve.
Okay, thank you. I just want to thank Josh and also Chief Steiker for actually being participating in this and coming up with a reasonable solution. It has been an issue over in that neighborhood and other neighborhoods throughout the city, and I think this is a really viable, cost-effective, and reasonable way to try to solve the issue of the citizens and residents being concerned about speeding down their streets. So I just wanted to thank Josh and Chief Steiker for coming up with this policy and coming up with the idea of the smaller portable speed limit.
All right, can I have yours too? Just kidding, just kidding. Josh, how do you determine the distance from this particular signage of who would be assessed and who wouldn't be assessed?
I would be using the entire block, so from roadway to roadway, with whoever has frontage along that road. So it's from intersection to intersection, whoever has frontage along that road would be who I would be assessing for that. And the reason is because generally speeders will affect the entire roadway network, not just one or two houses near that speed sign. You know, and these do slow down traffic, both, you know, a significant distance from the sign and past the sign.
Alderman Benner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Josh, is this a standard way of assessing for this? It seems kind of, or is this something that we came up with, or?
This is something that I had, you know, brought to Alderman Kruger and the mayor, and it's a way of allowing the residents to have some skin in the game for this. You know, the signs aren't overly expensive, but they are expensive, and we don't have the funds to put $3,500 to $4,000 signs throughout the entire city, you know, just because one resident wants it. It's a way of allowing the residents to, if they feel that speeding truly is an issue, then they are allowed to pay for that sign. You know, and then we would use those proceeds to purchase the next sign for the next area.
So you're targeting the residents, and when a portion of the problem has to do, like in this case, it's by a school, which of course draws more attention.
Yep.
And the schools won't be taking any ownership in this?
Not at this time. What I firmly believe that, you know, if you look at a lot of the studies of speeding in residential neighborhoods, it's the residents within a couple of blocks of that street who are doing the vast majority of the speeding. You know, and a lot of times it is the people on that block. I sat out at this intersection, you know, for about a half hour. There weren't a lot of cars that drove by, but the only car that I saw speeding pulled out of one of the driveways on that street.
Steve. Just wanted to wake you up.
Okay, I don't know.
I don't know, I struggle with that.
All right, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Director, what about blocks? For instance, my block, I have two churches, a school, and other a nonprofit building, and then some businesses, and then the rest are houses. So
We would probably assess them as well. You know, it wouldn't be a free sign for them. They would be assessed as well, probably based on the frontage of their yard compared to a standard lot.
okay. I know when you get things going like this with money involved and different individuals, some are in, some are out, you can create a lot of problems in the neighborhood. Certainly on my street, I know it's not the neighbors, but I'm on kind of a busy street in the downtown area too. So I think our community should be buying these signs and putting them where we think there is a purpose for it. And this is just a one-time billing that pays for the sign one time, and
Yeah, it would be a one-time billing, and then
if the sign breaks.
if the sign breaks, then we would have to ask the residents again if they want to pay for another sign. You know, it wouldn't be the city would put up another sign right away at the city's cost. We, again, just don't have the funds available to do that.
And then will this list be released? There's a public record, who's in favor of it, who's not in favor?
I would not want that to be made public record.
Is that Attorney Kaplan, is that something we can do, or is that a public record?
It would be a public record.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion? Alderman Nichols.
Thank you. I wonder about the effectiveness of placing one of these somewhere long-term. Is there any research or
They-
data about that?
This is one of the few things where they have actually found that long-term, it actually increases in effectiveness. So they found that, I believe it's on, it's in our packet regarding effectiveness of radar signs. So 3 periods of time, after 1 to 3 years, 19% of the locations saw reductions of 0 to 4%, 42% of reductions experienced 5 to 9% speed reductions, and then 36% of locations experienced 10% in speed reductions. And then if you look at the 2 to 5 year after installation, the 0 to 4 was 18%, 36% was 5 to 9, and 46% was 10% plus. So you'll notice that the 10% plus jumped from 36% to 46% after 2 to 5 years.
Thank you for that. And so that makes me support this a little bit more. What I was thinking about was purchasing a few of these and possibly moving them from neighbor to neighborhood, because there are always neighborhoods that have concerns about speeding.
And that's why we have the 90-day trial period, is so that, we, you know, if the residents don't necessarily want it at that location for long-term, we have that ability to move it to another neighborhood that does need it.
Okay, thank you.
Director, for instance, this isn't working again, but I really feel it's kind of the city's responsibility. I like to see these on major corridors in the city, Washington Street, and I apologize for that, and 114, 47, Racine Street, those corridors, most of them are state highways, and you know, people coming off the 441 or coming off of 114, I think they need a reminder like that.
And that is, you know, one thing that these could definitely be placed in. The particular instance that I was requested for this at first was that. However, we have definitely discussed that, you know, some of these other major, you know, roads, Manitowoc Road, Racine Street, you know, those ones have just as much of issues, and that would definitely be places that we could put it in the future.
Okay, but then we got to get 75% of the neighborhood then, to be fair to everybody. And
Yep.
to me, is, let's say on Washington Street here, the block, you only have 3 or 4 businesses maybe when you're coming in from Nicollet Boulevard to Garfield Avenue. Well, that would be a tremendous cost in those businesses there to have that sign put up there if we felt it needed to be on that block there.
Well, and that's, you know, one of the things that the businesses will have to debate as far as whether they want it or not. You know, we would make it up front as far as what their cost would be.
Well, what about us? I mean, I really think there should be one on Racine Street coming in off of 441 before the high school, and certainly Racine Street has a record of a lot of accidents and things. I think it was our #1 corridor at some point here, and you know, I think instead of having to wait for the people on that block to say something, for instance, like the 700 block of Racine Street, you have the high school on one side and the homes on the other. That would be a pretty heavy cost for those people on that block to pick up the cost for something like this.
And I understand that, but however, the biggest benefit for these signs would be the local residents. So that's why we recommend that it would be assessed to the
But it'd
local
also be
residents.
the high school, which,
We-
800 kids in that area there.
Yep, and it's one of those, this is one of the things that we're trying this out, and as we find what works and what doesn't, we
Yeah.
can always make changes.
Yeah.
And we can always,
I guess I'm trying to be fair, like we were talking earlier tonight about being fair to everybody.
Yep.
And having everybody pay the same or not pay the same. And I don't know if this is being fair. Would the high school have to pay for this then, on that block?
if we end up having one on that block,
Okay,
yes, I would have them.
So are they
pay for it.
counted as one, or are they counted as all those
It would be
lots?
based on frontage to
On
that
frontage.
road, yeah.
So they have let's see, on the 700 block, they have that entire block, they would be,
They would probably pay for half of the sign then. The residents would pay for that other half.
okay. I see that you were nodding at the chief.
Yeah, I'm going to throw him a lifeline.
I don't think it
We'll
was that
buzz in
hard.
here. Real simply, how this kind of came into concept is where the area that we were talking about with this one certainly wouldn't be designated as a high-traffic area. So we were trying to look at a way to equate it, because one of the problems that we've run into, great idea, is the crosswalk signs. Everyone now wants one on their block, basically, because they think that's going to slow down traffic. So we didn't have a good policy in place. Great idea to have them, support them 100%, but this was just kind of a way to, in those lesser areas, how do we equate it? And on this one, there was a comment made by a citizen earlier that this is taking the place of enforcement. Hardly. We actually set out and did, I don't remember how many hours of traffic enforcement in that area to try to determine if there was a problem. So there's a whole sequential series of steps that would go along with this. In addition to that, if the council or Board of Public Works would like to designate certain roads, like you've just mentioned, Washington Street, Racine Street, 9th Street, you could exempt those because those citizens are already dealing with a higher traffic count already. And maybe that's the quid that the city throws in, and we don't have to get 75% if it matches certain other criteria with it. That's certainly within your discretion as well. As I said, this is a starting point, but when you get that person that's on Elm Street, nothing wrong with Elm Street, but it's not used as much as Racine Street. How do you then have the city necessarily pay for Elm Street versus Racine Street? So if the council wants to designate certain traffic route areas, that's one way that perhaps we could circumvent this side of it if you would choose to want them on there. But then when you get the secondary roads, people wanting them, you could implement this policy. As just for example.
Okay. Alderman Severnick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is when we do this type of an assessment, who gets assessed, the property owner or the person that lives in that particular place? Because I know where Steve lives, there's a few duplexes.
It
I
would
have
have to
duplexes
be,
across from my house, so, let's say those residents want it, but maybe the guy who owns it doesn't want to pay for it,
the
so.
survey would go to the property owner.
Property owner,
Yep.
okay, thank you for clarifying.
Alderman Collier.
We have some roads, Manitowoc Road's a great example. Part of it's the city, part of it's the other side of the lake. When you got something like that, how will you enforce it? And the other thing is, if I got a business and I got 300 feet of frontage, because I have a big parking lot, and you come and tell me that I got to pay X amount of dollars, I'm going to be pretty excited. And I don't think the school system, I hope somebody talked to them before we do this, to see how they feel about it, because if you're saying that part of Racine Street on one side, which if you gotta do it there, you might never get it, because I don't think the people that pay the taxes there would ask for it, but it's needed. And I don't think the city'd be so happy, because next month it might be here, and then the next month it might be over by Bonta School, and it could be someplace else, and all of a sudden they're ringing up a bill. So I hope we talk to them a little bit about this, and I feel the business owners, there's got to be a different deal for them, because they don't like the speeders no more. And I'm not asking you to go out and ticket everybody that goes 6 miles over, but I think we should investigate this a little bit more. Thank you.
Alderman Kruger.
Thank you, Chairman. What you have to keep in mind is that this is a new policy. We never had one, and this is complaint driven. Just to give a little bit better background, it said that motorcycle is traveling darn near 100 miles an hour down the road doing a wheelie at night and almost hit a 5 or 6 year old girl in the area. Taking what's going on here and leaping it forward to, well, the school district's going to be upset and all that. I mean, the school district is not involved with this right now or anything like that. As they said, it's more for those side road areas that have issues with people speeding down and thinking it's a raceway and they want something done. In this case, pretty much everybody but two people on two full blocks wanted stop signs. And after talking with Josh and the chief, it was discovered that stop signs probably would not be the best answer to try to calm down the traffic and satisfy the residents. And that's why this whole thing came up and was offered as a solution. And I do agree, in part with Josh that, the residents should take part responsibility if they want these extra measures in their neighborhood. If they feel that this is that big of a concern, there should be a little bit of stake and, a little bit of ownership in it too. And it's a very good compromise from demanding stop signs like the neighbors wanted, which proves it doesn't exactly help. It's just a good beginning measure, and it can be manipulated and changed as time goes on, But I don't think we should be concerned about the school's not involved with this, and, this is strictly starting off with these areas, and when it gets to the point where there's a school on the street or a business, that's just something that we'll have to deal with at that point in time.
Director Josh.
The other thing is that, the way that this memo is written is it does only apply to local roadways, which are local roads, which is like neighborhood roads, Racine Street, Manitowoc, those are arterial roadways. This doesn't apply to those specific locations.
But I think it does apply to the businesses, the schools that have to be assessed for this too. Menasha has a lot of commercial and industrial properties throughout its residential areas, and certainly we have to treat everybody fairly with this. And if we're going to do it by assessing the length of the property, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and that is my intention, but the intention of this policy per se is solely for those local road requests, not the arterials or collectors. And even if a business is on a residential street, normally those streets are collectors or arterials. Those are not generally listed as local roads.
Okay. I know Alderman Collier had some concern about maybe looking at this a little longer. Is it the wish of the council to hold it in committee or move it to the council? Alderman Collier.
No, I have no problem going forward with it as long as I understand it's on the secondary roads to start out and fill it out for a while. And if we got to expand it, I have no problem with that. But I would hope that we would talk to some other people in other places if we expand it down the road. Thank you.
Seeing no further questions, we'll take a roll call.
Motion carried on roll call 8-0.
Thank you, Clerk. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Alderman Kruger, second by Alderman Zelinski. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.